For Java, what it does is it converts it to this thing called bytecode, and then the Java an IDE is basically like an editor to run your Java on. So I'll send a video soon on like how you can download Eclipse or IntelliJ. Basically, there's this thing called Ninite which you can use for if you're on Windows, where you can just install the JDK and Eclipse. Or if you're on Mac, I'll send a different video.
Does it have a syntax correction thing like PyCharm?
Yeah,
Does
IDE,
Eclipse has it?
yeah.
Yes.
So
Okay.
yeah, an IDE is basically an integrated development environment. So like you have different IDEs. If you search up Java IDE, you have all these different IDEs. The best one in my opinion is
an
like
important question.
yeah.
Why is it specifically Java?
Why is what specifically Java?
Why are we being forced to use Java as the robotics code language? Like, wouldn't
Because
it
Java
allow
is
us to use a newer one?
For Android Studio, it requires Java, and Android Studio is what you use, and that's also an IDE. So yeah, in order to like use an IDE, you need to install the Java runtime environment, and that all comes with the JDK. JDK is basically the Java development kit, and it'll have stuff like the libraries and the Java virtual machine, the compiler, and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm going to use Eclipse basically. Yeah, I'm going to create a new class and just go over some basics.
Wait, where do we get the JDK?
The JDK, you can just go online and just search up JDK 11, or you can use
Just search up Eclipse and it should open a tab in the Oracle website and just download
But
it.
make sure you first install the JDK before you install Eclipse.
All right, thank you.
Or you can use this website called Ninite and just check.
Check which one would we use?
Check those two. So yeah. So yeah, I'll go over Java compilation. So basically, okay, let me first create a class. So I'll just quickly go over Java compilation. So like computers in general, they talk in this language called binary, which is like, you know, the 1, 0, 0, 1 stuff. And in order for us to talk to our computers, we can't type out 1, 0, 0, 1 and communicate with our computers that way. So we learn these things called programming languages, and then compilers would compile that programming language and turn it into binary so that the computers can recognize that. So the process of compilation for like Java is different than like C++. For Java, what it does is it converts it to this thing called bytecode, and then the Java virtual machine interprets it and turns it into binary. While other languages, it just goes straight from the code to binary, which is why Java is a slow language compared to others. So the thing about Java is, the thing why Java is used a lot is because when you write Java on one platform, you can use that same code for any other platform, while other languages, if you write like C++ code on Windows, that code can only be used on Windows, and you have to rewrite your code or change it up for other platforms. So that's why you have the Java virtual machine and bytecode and all that, which allows you to write it once and you can use it on any platform. So that's basically how the compilation process works. Is there any like questions on that part?
No, I'm good.
So first, does everyone know what like a comment is? So basically, when you have your code, and if you do a double slash or a multi-line comment, you can type in anything you want, and basically when the compiler reads the program, it just skips over these comments. So like if you need to write down something when you come back later. So yeah, I'll just go over some quick basics.
Oh wait, hang on. Also for the comments, I think it's really important for FTC because whenever you're trying to figure out what you want to do with the code, it's really nice to explain it just so, like, let's say you want to pass down the code to another student. It makes it a lot easier for another reader to understand what you're trying to do. So just keep comments in mind and try to use them a little bit frequently when you're, obviously, once we get into FTC stuff.
So when you're first getting into Java, the main thing you should know is probably the main method, which is public static void main string. I'll tell you what each one of these things mean later, but just know that this is a method, and the method starts here and it ends here. So main is the name of this method, basically. And you have to know that after every instruction, you have to have this semicolon at the end. So after every instruction or anything you're commanding the computer to do, you have to have the semicolon at the end. That's just syntax. So yeah, the main method is basically like the special method is it's the method that runs first when you execute the code, and then from this method you can access other classes or other methods or other programs and stuff. So everything starts in this main method. And so a class, so public class, a class is basically a container that has all your properties and other functions, and it'll allow you to do stuff. And it'll basically contain all your methods, and it'll contain all your variables and stuff. And yes, so when you run this program, it will print out hello world, because I'll explain what each one of these things mean later, but this is basically a class. System is a class, and print line is a method, and you're sending these arguments in that method in order to print it out to the screen. So yeah, that's our first program, hello world. And you guys can also do these things when you install Eclipse, or you can use like a online Java editor. There's like, you can use Codiva, and you could do the same thing, and that'll work. You run this, it'll do the same thing. Yeah. Okay, so now I will go over variables. So is there any questions about this stuff? I'll go over what every single one of these mean later, but just know this is a method, and this is an instruction, and you just printed out hello world to the screen. Okay. Okay, so now I'll go over variables. So a variable is, everyone probably knows what a variable is. It's just like a container where you can just store information on, like data, like numbers, characters, and strings. And all these variables are just stored in the RAM for you to use later in the program. So you have different data types you can use. You can use integers, you can use doubles, strings, and I'll just go over all those. So when you're declaring a variable, you have to declare the type, so integer, and name your variable a equals 10. And you have to put that semicolon. In other programs like Python, you don't have to declare your integer right here. And you don't have to put the semicolon either, but you have, in Java, you have to declare integer. And then if you're doing stuff with the variable later, like a equals 5, like you change the number later, you don't put integer here, or else that'll give you an error. You just have to declare it once. So yeah, in this variable, you store the number 10 basically. And if you can print out a, you can print out 10, and it'll basically just print out the value 10 onto your screen, because it's printing out the value of a.
So I have a question. So like I saw like earlier you used public, then static void, and then system dot out. So is system just used for like GUI stuff and like printing out stuff?
Yeah, so system is a class. This class right here. System is basically a class, like this class, public class day one, it's a class. And
Mhm.
print line is a method, like main is a method, print line is its own method. And we're
Okay.
basically accessing that method and we're sending in hello world and it's just doing some complicated code for it to print it out to the screen.
All
So yeah,
right then.
when we're printing out anything, we use system.
Alright.
Wait, also this isn't GUI, by the way. This is not graphic user interface.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is printing out to
No,
a
I misspoke. Sorry. Like just printing stuff out and like displaying stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Got it.
So that's how you declare an integer. There's other integer types. You have long, you have byte, you have short. So you can declare like a byte b equals 10. But no, just always use int. There's no reason to use any of the other types. So just know for integers. An integer is basically a positive or negative value that's not a decimal, basically. So you can do -10, -100, but you can't do 0.0. That's basically a double. A double is a floating value. So I'll go over that. So that's an integer. And now you can have doubles. So a double is any value, negative or positive, basically any value. It can be, it has to have a decimal basically. Or it doesn't have to have,
It
but
doesn't have to, it just
yeah,
can, right?
yeah, it can. So 10.0, 10.01, anything like that. So that's
Wait, so what's going to be the most used variable?
most
I mean, most used variable. I mean, like in a robotics context, not in general.
robotics context, most used variable is like a double, basically,
Okay.
because you want to use those decimals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Especially with changing values.
So there's no floats in Java, right?
Float is the Python term for double.
You can use
Yeah.
float too. You can do float c equals 0.90.5 or something.
Okay, that makes sense.
Oh, you have to put f, pretty sure. Yeah. So just don't use floats. They're complicated and they're dumb. Just use double. Just use double for decimals, int for integers, and the last most important data type is string, and that's when you are holding a series of characters and stuff. So if you have string name equals Bob, so in this variable name, you're storing the string Bob, and you can later print that out, and it'll print out Bob onto the screen. Yeah.
Wait, quick question. For like the brackets stuff, like
These
I'm
green-
trying. Yeah. For some reason, like I'm trying to run my code and it's not working.
So make sure all your code is in the main method and is in this single.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so you have curly braces for the class, and you have different curly braces for the method. So you can have multiple methods down here and stuff. All in
Okay.
the same class.
Okay.
So yeah, that's variables. Does anyone have questions about variables? It's pretty.
Wait, so it's kind of related to variables, but I do have a question. Like, how do you do the thing where you get user input?
User input. I'll go over that later. So you'd have to import a certain package, and you would just use that. You could do that later. It's not really that.
Wait, so do we gotta import a certain package from the Java API library?
Yeah, you would have to import a certain package. Like you would use the import keyword, and then from that you can use different methods, different classes that'll allow you to get user input.
Yeah,
So maybe we'll do that like next session and stuff.
All right.
User input.
Thanks.
Yeah. What else? There's also characters. It's not really that important, but there's also character. d equals, and that's just single characters. So you can only use.
And then you forgot Boolean.
Oh, right, Boolean, right. I'll do that too. So yeah, so you have characters. So, okay, I'll just write everything here. So you have integers, double, string, char, and Boolean. So Boolean is basically true or false. Boolean, uh, Boolean x equals true. So Boolean is just either true or false, and it's pretty useful. So we'll just, so that's all you have to know for now. We'll go over like the usages for Booleans later. So those are the main variable types you should know. There are many others, but those are kind of irrelevant, basically. Is there anything else for variables? No, that's pretty much it for variables. I'll just quickly go over like naming restrictions. So for variables, so when you're declaring a string, when you're declaring a string, S has to be capital because string is a class. But integers, int is not a class, that's just a type. String is a class. And you have to put these double quotes on either side to store that value into that string.
Wait, so string comes under a class and a variable and a method?
Yeah. It's basically, it's a class. So
Rohan, the dal is ready. Go turn it off.
So yeah, so string is a class, and you're basically creating a reference variable to this string. You're creating an object basically, and then you'll be able to later access all these different methods that's in the string class, like getting the length of the string and stuff. So we'll go over that later. But basically, string is a class, and that's why it allows you to access different methods. So yeah, so that's that. For variable naming restrictions, when you're declaring variables, like int number equals 100, your variable can't have a number in front of it when you're creating the variable, and your variable name can't be a keyword, like it can't be import.
Second thing is you can't have 100 equals to int. So it has to always be int equals 100.
And yeah,
You can't mix it up.
yeah. It has to be int equals 100. So int your age equals 100 or something like that. But you can't have a number in front of when you're declaring your variable, and it can't be like an important keyword like if, because those are keywords you use.
Wait, Rohan.
Yeah.
Okay, so what if you declare like an integer variable and then you want to convert that variable into like a float? So how would you do that?
Yeah, I'm gonna go over casting variables right now.
There's also different like methods to do that too.
Yeah, there are different methods you can access. But like, I'll go over simple casting right now. Oh yeah, one more thing. So there's this another keyword. It's called final, and final is basically a constant. So when you're declaring a variable that you will never change in your program, you would put final in front of it. So final, you can say numbers of pi equals All right, final double. You have to also put the type. Double numbers of 5 equals 3.4. So later in your program, if you try to change you won't be able to do that because we declared it a constant. Final makes it a constant, so it'll just be a constant variable throughout. And people usually put constants in all caps, but that's optional. That's just good Java practice. Okay, so now we'll just go over casting variables. Does anyone have any questions for like just variables in general?
Nope.
Okay. So for casting variables. So casting is basically like being able to change one type of variable to another type, like being able to go from an integer to a double, or a double to an integer, or string to an integer, or integer to a string, basically. But I'll just go over some simple casting. So when you print out 1 divided by 5, right? I'll go over arithmetic operators in this workshop, in this lesson too. So when you print out, when you do 1 divided by 5, and you print that out, let me comment out all the other. See, I'm commenting these out so I won't print those. So when you do system.out.print 1 divided by 5, it gives you a value of 0. You would expect it to give you a value of 0.2, but it gives you a value of 0 because Java sees this as an integer and this as an integer. So if both of these are integer, Java basically gives you an integer. And it basically just drops down, it drops the remainder. It doesn't round down or round up, it just drops the remainder. So if the output is 0.999, it'll just give you a value of 0 if it's trying to give you an integer. It will just drop down 0.999. And if you do like 7 divided by 5 and print it out, it'll just give you a value of 1. It won't give you that decimal answer. So in order to yeah,
you'd have to make it a double first for it to work, right?
And there's a couple ways to make it. So one way to make it a double, we'll just go with the 1 divided by 5 example. One way to make it a double is to put 1.0. If you do 1.0 divided by 5, it'll give you that. It'll recognize 1.0 as a double, and it'll give you 0.2 as your answer. It'll give you a double answer. So that's one way. And another way is, so let's integrate, let's try to bring variables into this. So let's say you declare
Wait, Arcot. So when you mean by simple casting, you mean this is simple casting. So what do you exactly mean by like simple casting versus the more advanced casting?
There's other methods you can use, like parsing and stuff like that. So going from a string to an integer. There are different methods you can use, but like we'll go over those methods later. Those are more, it's not really like complicated casting. It's just like not, you would have to use variable. You would have to use different methods. So I'm just basically showing you how you can go from 1 divided by 5 to like 1.0 divided by 5 to get a double as your answer.
Right.
So I'll bring in a variable. So let's say you declare a variable integer number equals, what do we already do number? Okay, we'll just do integer h equals 9. Right, and if we do h divided by 5, let's say we do h divided by 5, it's not going to give you 1.8, it's going to give you 1. Yeah, because it sees h is a integer, and it's just sees this as an integer, so it'll give you an integer answer. So in order to make it a double, you can put double here. So in parentheses next to h, you can put double right there. and then it'll give you 1.8.
Wait, call or like in line 52 when you say int h equals 9, if you put double h equals to 9, then you don't have to put a double in the
Yeah,
place.
yeah. So if you so let's say we declare another double, right? Double g equals 5, and we do g here. At least one of the variables is a double. It'll give you a double answer. It'll give you 1.8. So that's that. So yeah, in that sense, you can also go from a double to an integer. So if you want to make g an integer, you can put integer right there. So you put int right there and you press run, it'll give you 1 because both values are an integer. So you can go from a double to an integer or an integer to a double by just putting parentheses around that variable and declaring the other variable. However, if this double was 5.6 or something, and you put integer there, it's just gonna drop that 0.6 and it's gonna recognize it as 5.
Rohan, can I just add something super quick?
Yeah.
Also just try to be a little bit careful with casting because like it might be the computer might get confused on what you're trying to cast. Make sure to be really clear to the computer like this is what I want as an integer and this is what I want as a double and everything.
So yeah, that's how you go from integer to a double. So when you're going from a double to an integer, it drops any decimal. It doesn't round up, round down, it just drops it. So the integer version of g would just be 5. And you would just get that same 1. So yeah, that's basic casting. So yeah, that's the basics of casting. There's nothing more than that. We'll go over like using different methods like parsing and stuff like that later. So now I'll go over the arithmetic operators. So an operator is basically like characters you use to operate on variables. So the different operators are, there is addition, subtraction, backslash. I don't know if it's called backslash, but that type of slash.
Yeah, I think it's backslash.
These are the 4 different types. Oh yeah, there's the special.
Wait, you were saying modulo.
Yes, modulus. Remainder. These are the 5 different types of arithmetic operators. And I'll just quickly, it's pretty self-explanatory. So if you have like an integer f equals 4, you can do like integer k equals f plus 9. So k would have a value of 13 while f would have a value of 4 because you're just saying k is equal to f plus 9, so 4 plus 13. So you use that arithmetic operator, that plus sign. And then you can like print it out, k, and you can see it's 13. So that's addition, and then subtraction is the same thing. You can do f minus 9, and it'll give you 5, yes. You can do the same thing with multiplication and addition. So sometimes in Java, especially for like for loops and while loops, when you want to keep adding 1 or keep adding a certain value to a variable, there are different methods you can do that. So let's say you have an int I equals 0, right? And instead of doing I equals I plus 1, so I equals I plus 1 basically means you're setting I equal to the value of I plus 1. So right now here, the value will be 1. Because you're setting the value of I equal to I plus 1, so 0 plus 1. But a better way to do this, and a very common way to do this, is to just do, we'll just keep this up here. A better way to do this is I plus plus. So that just adds 1 to I. So here the value would be 2. You can also do I equals I minus 1. And that basically just reduces the value of I by 1. Or more commonly, you could do I minus minus. And that reduces the value of I by 1. So that's how you use arithmetic operators and these plus plus and minus minuses to change the value of different variables. Yeah, does anyone have questions about those stuff?
Nope.
Okay. Yeah. So these increment by 1, these decrement by 1. So I'll go over modulus now. So when you're talking about modulus is a special arithmetic operator that's in a few programming languages, I don't know, but it's in Java. And it basically allows you to get the remainder of 2 values. So let's say you do int remainder equals 5 modulo, where's the percent sign, modulo 3. This will give you the value of 2, because 5 modulo 3 is basically, the value of that is, if you do 5 divided by 3, the value of that is 1 remainder 2, and this modulus just gives you that value of 2. So if you print out you'll get 2. So that's what modulus is basically. And if you do u equals 6 modulo 4, it gives, we'll do 4 modulo 4. This will give you a value of 0, because if you do 4 divided by 4, the value is 1 remainder 0, so it'll give you a value of 0. So this is especially useful when you want to see if a value is, this is mainly used if you want to see a value is odd or even. So let's say, I'll go over conditionals later, but let's say if you have like an if statement and you say if x modulo 2 is equal to 0, then you know it's even, right? This would be even. X equals 4. So if we run this, x modulo 2 would be 0, because that'll give you 2 remainder 0. However, if x was like 5, so if we have like another, I'll go over these conditionals later, but if you have like x modulo 2 is equal to 1, then you know that it's going to be odd, and you could do something. So that's mainly how modulus is used, if you can see if it's odd or even.
Could you re-explain modulus? I kind of didn't understand properly.
Modulus basically gets you. So when you did division in like 3rd grade, you had remainders, right? You didn't do decimals and stuff. And modulus just drops whatever value, whatever whole number value, and it just gives you the remainder. So if you do 5 modulus 3, it doesn't give you like the actual whole number. It just gives you the value 2, because 5 divided by 3 is equal to 1 remainder 2, right?
Yeah.
It goes into 5 once, and then you have a remainder of 2, so it'll give you that 2.
All right, I understood.
And if
Thank
you
you.
And why is U 0?
U is 0 because 4 modulus 4. So if you do 4 divided by 4, you get a value of 1 remainder 0, right?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
modulus returns that 0.
Oh, that makes sense.
So that's why every single so that's why I give you like an example here, which is mostly used. So if you have an an integer x equal to like a value of 4 or 6 or 8, like anything that is even, and you do that modulus 2, you'll get a value of 0. So that lets you see if a variable is odd or even. So if x is even, this case will be true. It'll be 0. An even number modulus 2 will give you a value of 0. And an odd number modulus 2 will give you a value of 1. So like 3, 5, 7 modulus 2 will give you like a whole number remainder 1. And modulus returns that 1. So that's where it's used mostly. Is there anything else? Is there any other questions for these arithmetic operators? You have adding, subtraction, multiplication, dividing, remainder.
Oh, I have a question about the remainder.
Yeah.
So it will always be a 1-digit number, right? Is that how it works? Like when you run the program?
The remainder? The remainder?
Yeah.
I mean, no, not always. If you have a remainder that's like 2 digits, then it will return that remainder. Like if you have something like
Basically, it's whole numbers, no decimals at all. Basically.
oh yeah, no decimals, but an example of
Okay. Yeah.
but yeah, just whatever the remainder is.
Okay.
Yeah, 2-digit, 3-digit remainders, anything.
Right.
Yeah. So when did I say it would end? 2:30. Okay. We can do relational operators.
Wait, are you gonna do both the operators or one?
Wait, what?
Are you gonna do both of the operators or just one type?
Wait, I couldn't understand. What did you say?
Are you gonna do both logic and rational,
Oh,
or
yeah,
just
yeah.
rational?
Yeah, I'll do that now. We have time.
All right.
So these are arithmetic operators. Pretty important. Okay, so now I'm going to go over relational operators. And the different type of relational operators is you have double equal sign, which lets you checks if variables are equal. Then you have greater than. This checks if it's if variable is greater than another. This is less than. Checks if, so just checks if a variable is less than. This is greater than or equal to. So checks if a variable is greater than or equal to another variable. It's like in math when you have the thing and then the line underneath. Less than or equal to.
So then what is not equal to?
Yeah, that's checks. If it's less. And then the last one is not equal. So checks if a variable is not equal to, and this is where Booleans come into play, where I briefly went over them. So when you're asked any of these questions, you either say true or false, like is 3 greater than 2? That's true. Is 5 less than 10? That's true. Is 5 greater than 10? That's false. Is 5 equal to 5? That's true. So this is where Booleans come into play. So, and you mainly use these for conditionals and for loops. These are like basics that you have to know. So let's say you declare a variable int y is equal to 8 and int s is equal to 6. So when you do system.out.println, do s is equal to 8, s is equal to y, this will not give you any number value. It'll just give you true or false, and in this case it would be false because 6 is not equal to 8, obviously. So those are Booleans. So yeah, it'll give you a value of true or false. And so this is where Booleans come into play. So when you declare a Boolean value, you can call it like is true equal to s y. You can do that too. And right now the value of this Boolean is false. The value is false right here. So if you just print out is true, it would give you that same value of false. You store true or false in Booleans. And I'll just use all of these. So let's see. Okay, so if you want to do not equal to, so you can use the same y and s variables I created. So so you can do sysout s is not equal to y. And in this case, yes, s is not equal to y. That's true, so it'll print out true. So does that make sense? Like how you use equal to and not equal to. So whenever you're using these relational operators, you get a value of true or false. Because you can either be true or false.
But this is like kind of similar to Python.
Yeah, it is.
The syntax is a pain in the ass.
Every programming language is the same. It's just the syntax that's different.
True.
Yeah. So, I guess I'll just quickly go for all the others. So if you say, use like int Bob age is equal to 17, int Joe is equal to 16, and let's say you want to, you mainly use these in if statements, but I'll go over that probably next time. But if you say, if you print out Bob age is greater than Joe age, you're basically seeing if Bob's age is greater than Joe's age, which yes, 17, which is Bob's age, is greater than 16. So it'll just print out a value of, let me comment these out. print out a value of true. And if you do less than, it will print out a value of false because Bob's age is not less than Joe's age. And let's say both of their ages are the same, right? Both their ages are the same, and you run this, it'll be false because one age is not less than the other age. However, if you do less than or equal to, well, it's one age is less than or equal to because they're both the same. So yeah, it'll give you a true. So it's pretty self-explanatory. It's just like simple math: greater than, less than or equal to, greater than, equal to, and then equal to, and then not equal to. So those are the relational operators. Let's say I'll quickly go over conditional statements right now. So let's say you declare a variable. I'll just give you like one like semi-real world example. Let's say Boolean is terms of conditions checked. Right. False is the default. So if is terms of conditions checked equal to true, then else if I'll go over conditionals in detail like the next time, but this will just give you a good idea of how it works. So right now, the Boolean is terms of condition checked is false. And if we run this, it's gonna check is terms of condition checked is equal to true. So if it's true, it'll say it's been checked. But else, so this is the default if doesn't work, else make sure to check the box, because else if it's not true, it'll be false. So if we run this, it'll be make sure to check the box because I put the value of false. I set the value is terms of condition checked equal to false, so it'll give you this message. But if you set it to true, it'll give you it's been checked. It'll give you that message.
Is there elif?
Yes, so Python is elif, but for Java it's else if.
Yeah, same thing. Well,
So yeah, you do have else if you have different. You have other conditions you want to check. So you can say is terms of conditions false. So it'll never run this because it's either going to be true or false.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a basic conditional. I'll go over conditionals in more detail and using all these different relational operators in these conditionals. So yeah, in these conditionals, you use relational operators and you use this other thing called logical operators. So that's like and, or, not. It's like the double and sign, the tall, skinny line sign. I'll go over that next meeting. I think that's basically good for today. If anyone has any questions or anything.
Nah, I'm good.
Is that it?
Yes, thank you, Arcot.
Thanks, Arcot.
Is this it?
Yeah, we went over a lot of stuff today, pretty much. We went over basics like what is a method, what is a class, variables, naming restrictions, arithmetic operators, relational operators. And next meeting we'll go over logical operators. I'll write them here. I'll explain them later. Logical operators. Have and, or, and you have not. These are essential, and you use these in like every single Java program. These are the basics. I'll go over these in the next meeting and stuff. So, is there any questions in general?
No.
Yeah, like as the meetings go on, you'll have a better understanding of like what's a method and what's a class, and how, and like we'll get into object-oriented programming probably in the third lesson if you're going this fast. Yeah.